The director will call the roll.
Mayor Donches,
I'm here.
Commissioner Ackerman,
Here.
Commissioner Pappas,
Here?
Commissioner Moriarty,
Here.
and Commissioner Tease.
Present.
Is there a motion? You know, I was supposed to get a ruling, and I never did, I don't think.
I sent it to you.
I forgot. Sorry.
I
will-
emailed it to you.
Now that I'm looking, I will work on that. But anyway, is there a motion on the agenda?
So moved. I'll make a
And for now,
motion.
is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and the motion passes. Yes, Commissioner Pappas.
Do we have to wait another month before we address the second thing? I did it the day after the meeting the last time.
Well,
It's been
hopefully I
several
can get it. I
months.
forgot to ask them about this. I don't know what happened, but it wasn't the biggest item on my agenda.
Well, no, I asked for a written, I asked for a written legal opinion, and I was told I could share it with you, and I emailed the written legal
What did it
opinion to
say?
you. It said that no second is needed, it's a small board.
It did? Has
Yes.
any- Do we have a copy of that? Does anybody have a copy? Did you copy everyone or just me?
I just copied you because I was told that I shouldn't share, that
Yeah, I know.
I couldn't share it, but I could share it with you.
Did you get it?
No, I haven't seen it.
Well, I think that is their opinion, having kind of heard it from them. All right, so based upon the idea, Steve Bolton had previously said to me before he even raised this that we are ruled by, he was actually talking about the school board, because it's only 9 members, it's ruled by the small board's portion of Roberts, and that is only 2 or 3 pages long. So he'd already said that. And then you, Commissioner Pappas, raised this, which is consistent with what he said before. Now apparently he's issued a written ruling, which I apologize I did not see. Anyway, so for now then, we will go with the procedure outlined in the memo that we do not require, and in the small board section of Roberts, that we do not need a second. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll move to approve, well, actually, it looks like the agenda was first, or did we
We
approve
did
the
that
agenda?
one. We did that.
Okay. I'll move to approve the minutes of the Board of Public Works meeting of April 26, 2018.
Any discussion? Commissioner Ackerman?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. Page 1, this is a meeting that I was unable to attend. It does show that I wasn't present, which is great. But then there was a motion to approve the agenda as amended, and it says seconded by Commissioner Ackerman. I'm not sure how I did that.
That's a bit of a problem. Yeah.
Minor change. I want to correct that.
We'll get that
Yeah,
corrected.
okay,
Thank you.
super, thank you.
Any other discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And the motion passes. Item 4.
I'll move to unseal the non-public meeting minutes from the personnel from the Board of Public Works meeting of April 26, 2018.
Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes. Public comment. Is there any member of the public who would like to address the board? I don't see any. So we'll go on to item 6, aldermanic referrals. Is there a motion with respect to R18-035?
I'll move for positive recommendation relative to the acceptance and appropriation of $30,000 from Renaissance Downtown LLC into Public Works Capital Project activity, East Hollis Street Gateway Improvement Project.
Is there discussion? Commissioner Pappas.
If someone can just quickly explain where that money is going to be used,
Pardon?
Tim, do you want?
just for the public watching. Thank you.
Director Cummings, Tim Cummings, is working on this project, so he will brief you. But before we get to that, let the minutes show that our liaison Alderman Jettie is here. I don't think we said that at the beginning, did we? If not,
No, we didn't.
please make sure that's in the minutes. Sorry about that. Director Cummings.
Thank you. Yes, for the record, my name is Tim Cummings. I'm the Director of Economic Development, and my office is charged with executing on the East Hollis / Bridge Street Transportation Improvement Project, which is a locally managed project funded through the state on behalf of the federal government with transportation funds. This is a housekeeping matter, and it's basically an accounting issue that came up where we need to just transfer the money that was received actually a little while back. A couple years ago, it came in from a private donation from Renaissance Downtowns, which is doing the development right off of Bridge Street. And the idea is that money will be used for the improvement project that is currently being designed and ideally used to help beautify the area with whatever design is actually finally decided upon. We won't have that until the fallish timeframe, and if all goes according to plan, we'd be looking to start construction in 2020. So that's just a quick update on where we are with that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Discussion? Questions? The motion is to recommend final passage to the Board of Aldermen. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Parks and Recreation.
Move to approve the purchase and installation of a central irrigation system from Smart Water Management LLC of Hopkinton, Massachusetts, for the sum of $26,220. Funding will be through Department 177 Park and Recreation, Fund General Activity Central Irrigation Project.
Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. We'll move on to wastewater.
I'll move to approve the user warrants as presented.
Discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes. Item B.
I'll move to approve the purchase of a 6-inch trailer-mounted portable Goodwin brand pump from Xylem in the amount of $45,279. Funding will be through Department 169 Wastewater Fund, WRF, account classification 71 equipment.
Discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes. Next, we go to solid waste. I think Mr. LaFleur should come up for this because the item we have is a discussion regarding recycling center costs. And there is a spreadsheet that has been prepared summarizing some of the issues, which we're now circulating to the board.
So I think I'll just start. I think originally Commissioner Pappas expressed interest in looking at really what our costs are
Yes.
for the items in the recycling center and maybe what other communities are charging. So, am I on? Yeah. And so we put this together just so you could, and you're just receiving it tonight, but I thought this might be at least a point to start the discussion about our recycling center and what we do differently from other communities.
Does Mr. LaFleur, I don't know, do you have additional detail you'd like to?
No, this is just all the information, that, sorry, Superintendent Jeff LaFleur, Solid Waste. A couple of my employees and myself went through, and we went through, I think, over 10 or 12 of the surrounding communities and prices, and this just shows what they're charging in their respective communities. Just, again, just a thought, something to get the wheels turning here to see how we can help work on the recycling at the landfill. Possibly help get some revenues, make some money back.
One major issue that we're having in the landfill right now is with C&D. The gypsum board or wall board that's going in is creating hydrogen sulfide gas, and we're dangerously teetering on permit non-compliance. So that's something that we may want to look at increasing the price and maybe diverting all of the C&D at some point from the landfill.
Meaning paying someone to take it away?
Yeah.
What do you think that would cost per ton?
We're paying it, I think it's about 70.
Yeah, right now we're doing about $71 a ton to
$71
ship it
or
out.
something.
So I'd be looking at a pretty substantial amount of money to
Yeah.
ship it out. The other thing that we could do is try a ban or raise the cost so high that residents would want to take it to LLNS or ERCO, which is within a 50-mile radius of the landfill. There's construction recyclers that'll take all that demo.
I noticed Manchester is charging $7,
Yeah.
$7.50 a pound, which is what,
$1,400 a ton.
$1,400 a ton.
1,400?
15, actually.
15, yeah. So I'm not a banker, sorry.
Yes, Commissioner Pappas.
So right now, we're paying about the same for recycling as we are for construction and demolition?
Yeah, that's,
Right?
roughly, yes.
Fairly close.
Roughly, fairly close, yes.
I don't know what the pleasure is of folks. This obviously has been an issue, and I for quite some time, I would have expressed an interest in, perhaps taking a look at us charging for our electronics to help fill the gap. So I don't know what the pleasure of maybe the board of the director or the mayor would be, if you want, if you would like a couple of workshop type of things with some interested parties,
I think that's a great idea.
if you think that makes sense.
I do. I think there are a number of things that committee could look at. One is single stream, and, do we continue to recycle glass, for instance? It's being landfilled right now. And also looking at electronics, and the cost of that, and C&D, and maybe even looking at food waste. That's another thing that we really haven't. So I think there are a number of things that a committee could look at.
Is food waste
I
causing,
think that would be helpful.
is food waste causing some problems in the landfill, or just?
No,
just-
it isn't. It makes a much more nutrient-rich compost if we
Okay.
take it in. And we've had, some people have asked about it.
Okay.
Restaurants have asked about it, and
Okay.
and so it might be something to consider.
Commissioner Ackerman.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. You specifically spoke about glass, but yet
Yes.
glass isn't on this document.
So,
Do I
no,
not-
that's
do I-
correct. We didn't include single stream on this document. But that's something that, has an issue, has been a pretty big issue, and something that we should probably continue to monitor.
So the committee, the workshop that we're talking about could address that as well. And
yes,
where are
true.
we? I know that we talked at the budget meeting or proposal. Where are we with regards to possibly putting a cover over the single stream area to potentially reduce the cost of recycling? I don't know what the cost-benefit analysis is, but where are we with
So
that?
that was something that was funded in our fiscal year 19 budget, and the superintendent has worked out a plan, and we plan on moving forward as soon as our new budget takes effect.
So it's in the capital improvements section of the city budget. For 200,000 or
Yes.
220, 200. The budget committee last night recommended approval of the budget with some changes, but nothing having to do with that. So as it stands right now, if the budget passes as proposed or as recommended by the budget committee, there will be this money to put a cover over the recycling area. I mean, I don't think there's any guarantee that that will get us anything, but on the other hand, it may prevent things from getting worse. Too much worse. Right now, I think Lisa can tell you that we have contaminated, so-called contaminated recycle stream because in part it is wet with water, and this will at least eliminate that contaminant.
So this document is great, and I'm sure it took a lot of work just to get to this. And glass is a concern. What is the biggest piece that's costing the city money? Is it glass specifically, or is it just a combination of everything?
It's a combination of everything, really. Yeah, people have asked, would it help to separate, and not really. All commodities are really low right now, and there used to be a commodity for like newspaper. Now nobody reads newspapers anymore, so those plants have really gone out of business for the most part. So I think single stream is definitely the way to go, but we could reduce our cost by taking glass out of our single stream flow because it's being landfilled now anyway.
Commissioner Tease.
Under electronic equipment, can someone remind me the discussion we had? What happens to people's habits if we were to, say, increase that from 2 free to be X number of dollars per unit? Are they gonna, will they just find their way into the trash can and be placed in the landfill? Is that ultimately what happens? Or will people still come in and,
I mean,
does that pose a bigger danger?
that's always a concern, I guess. What I would say is that doesn't seem to be happening in other communities
Okay.
who charge.
Okay.
But sure, I mean, that could be a concern.
And that could negatively impact us just in terms of volume? Because it ends up in a landfill versus being shipped out?
Well-
It's actually an electronics ban in the
Yeah,
landfill. We
yeah, you can't put electronics in
Can't
there.
bury it, so if we find it, we have to pull it out, or we could get fined for that.
Okay.
It doesn't happen often now. I mean, my guys, they'll see it once in a while, they'll pull it out, put it next to the cart, and typically the residents will get the hint, but, like Lisa said, like the director said, surrounding communities have had charges. The people that are gonna dump are gonna be unhonest and just dump wherever they wanna dump anyways, but the honest people will pay the $5 or whatever the charge is to do the right thing.
And lastly, do we have the ability to augment this chart, which I will echo what Commissioner Ackerman said, just to give us an idea what the volume is of each of these items? So when we start talking about numbers and increasing fees, we have a sense of what that means from a revenue standpoint?
Yeah,
Even generally, anyway?
Yeah, generally we could. My electronics, we get charged by the pound, so that's why we came up with a figure. We estimated, I want to say $30 per pound, 30
Right.
pounds per TV, just a rough number, and we can come up with numbers that way. Same thing with our tires. Fluorescents, we have bulbs. We know how many bulbs we ship out to the bulbs. My recycling coordinator is great with that. So yeah, we could come up with numbers
And
if
that,
we want to do the work.
and that could be, if we establish a committee, as Commissioner Pappas suggests, that's something that we could take this a step further, just to see
And
what the
but I think-
economics of this really means.
I think what you're asking also is, if we were to say for electronics, charge, say $15, which is kind of in the middle of what these other communities, how much money would that bring in?
Right. So I think it makes sense to understand the volume, both in terms of pieces of equipment and dollars in the door and how much of an impact it could make in the
Right.
budget on other things.
Sure.
Mayor?
Yes. Alderman Jettie.
So, on the point of a study committee, I have been working on preparing an ordinance to be introduced to form a committee to study our solid waste and recyclable problem. And on the different ways of handling it and finding out how we can best deal with our solid waste and our recyclables. Because I see there appear to be a number of different solutions out there, and whether or not they're applicable here or practicable here is a question I would like to see a committee, as you do, I think, study this and help guide our landfill operation and this board and the aldermen on how we can best deal with this situation. Because as has been pointed out here before, the solid waste has become a big problem, and our landfill is filling up, and the cost of finding another place, whether it would make any sense to find another place in Nashua, another location for an additional landfill, or whether it makes sense to ship this stuff out to another place. you know, wherever it goes, it ends up being buried somewhere, and the impact that that has on the environment is something that concerns me, and, you know, whether that's a good solution or not is something I think we ought to study. And you know, recycling, you know, as also has been pointed out, the market has dropped out. And so it's, you know, I keep hearing different numbers. Last month, Director, you said that,
72.
that it was at the level of 72. Heard the mayor talk about it being 84.
It is increased.
uh,
It has increased to that point. But the 72 is March, the 82 is April, was April. So it increased that much in just a month.
And I've had people write to me and say, you know, I want to do the right thing. Should I be putting my recyclable stuff in the trash instead of the recycling because I want to save the city money? And I think this is something we've got to study and come up with a solution, because it's not only the cost of the recycling, it's the cost, you know, how is this impacting our environment? You know, and I see all these plastic bottles here, and, you know, this is,
There's not one in front of me.
yeah.
Or you.
I want,
Or me, yeah. And, you know, in the plastic bag issue, I don't know if I said it before this board before, but, you know, a 7th grade student at one of the schools contacted me about proposing an ordinance to ban plastic bags, because she heard and has read about how terrible plastic bags are to the environment. And, you know, unfortunately, we can't do that because the state, it would require the state to pass enabling legislation to allow us to do something like that. And when it was last proposed, as recently as last year, the state legislature defeated a bill which would have enabled communities to impose a ban on plastic bags. You know, hopefully that effort will be renewed in the coming legislature, and we'll have more success. But these are all things to that I think a committee would, you know, should study. You know, bring in experts in this area to give us guidance on, you know, what's the best way for us to handle this.
I guess, you know, and I want to remain quiet here, but I really take offense to you saying bring in experts. That is my background. That is the superintendent's background. We have Sally Hyland, who has been here for 30 years. That woman knows more about recycling than anybody. I mean, we have experts, and I think we should be trusted. And I think that with the Board of Public Works guidance, I don't think we have big problems in solid waste. In fact, I think we've really managed our landfill and our solid waste extremely well. I think as well, if not better than other communities. So I guess I take offense with saying bring in experts to guide us, because I think you do have experts here.
Okay, well, I'm just following up on when I've spoken,
You know-
when I've spoken to you and the director and Sally Hyland. You know, they've all talked about, they've all phrased this issue as a problem. And I'm not saying that you're not handling it as best as possible, but, you know, I read about, you know, different places all over the world that are coming up with different processes to deal with this. And, you know, I get the feeling that, you know, that as good as our solid waste department is, you know, that, you know, it seems like an overwhelming problem, and whether or not there's information out there that would help.
It's not just a problem for the solid waste of City of Nashua, it's for the United States right now.
Exactly.
China dropped out, so I concur with Lisa, or the director said, that we're doing everything we can. It's not like we're not turning every leaf looking at what we can do and how we can do it better. We're here looking at a recycling cost for other commodities other than single stream recycling that we can discuss at a separate time. But, you know, I spend $180,000 a year on electronics. I spend $75,000 on tires to get rid of. That's what we're looking at here, is how we're gonna recoup that money to help out with the city's budget.
And we talked to a lot of agencies, including DES, including the NRRA, who are really, who have their, you know, ear to the ground about what's going on all over the country, all over the world. So, I mean, it's not, I mean, we're really keeping track of everything that's going on in the recycling industry and what the commodities are trending at and what they're worth. And, you know, the single stream, yes, it's increased significantly, but we had one bidder. That's it. I mean, if Casella decides they don't want to take our single stream, we don't have anybody to take our recycling. There's nobody that will take it. So that's the predicament that most communities are in right now. And a lot of communities can't afford recycling, and they're having to abandon their recycling programs. It's a really tough time right now. But we spent a tremendous amount of time talking to EcoMaine, talking to Casella, talking to the NRA, talking to just everybody that we can think of. And you know, we really have put a lot of time and effort into this. So, and, you know, again, that's my background. That's where I come from, you know. I
Now,
mean,
as it happens, there is an article on the front page of the business section of the New York Times today on this issue, which we can circulate, which basically says that, you know, it focuses more on the West Coast, but describes exactly what we're facing. They don't know what to do. You know, the costs are escalating. China's not taking anything. They're stockpiling. These are communities very dedicated, you know, to things like recycling. I think Portland, Oregon, or elsewhere in Oregon is one of the areas that they've talked to, but elsewhere in the world. So, you know, we are not alone. Commissioner Tease.
I'm not sure who brought the topic up, but I'm a big fan of committee work because I think it serves as a great vehicle for education. And it sounds like this may be a unique opportunity for us, particularly myself as a new commissioner, to learn more about the great work of the folks at the Solid Waste Department. I had the opportunity, I'm not going to go in August, but maybe I'll go later in June to tour it again. But I did have a question with respect to process, and being the newbie, I think I can ask this question and get away with it, but is what Alderman Jettie proposes, and I guess maybe I'll ask you and the mayor, I don't know, does that ordinance, is the process that you come out of Board of Public Works and then go to the alderman, or does it go the other way? And how can we work jointly to satisfy all stakeholders?
Well, it's kind of a joint responsibility in the sense that the Board of Public Works oversees the landfill and other public works operations. On the other hand, you know, the city budgets and directs to the landfill a couple $1 million a year, but, you know, between $2 and $3 million. That has to be voted on by the alderman. So, these fees are set by ordinance, are they, or not? I'd have to review that. But in any event, so I think it's kind of a joint responsibility, you know, and obviously the costs are great enough that everyone is involved. Now, there was a day when the landfill operated as a profit, some years ago, decades ago, you know, that the tipping fee paid for everything. And more. Surplus to the city, but those days are long gone. So now, you know, given the subsidy that's, if you want to call it that, tax money that goes into operating the landfill, the tipping fees do not cover everything by any stretch of the imagination. It's a joint responsibility. And I would say that, you know, if we can increase some of these fees, we could offset some of the money that the city goes in. I mean, you know, it probably is, maybe in an ideal world, we wouldn't charge for some of this stuff, but if other communities are charging $15 a ton, or excuse me, $15 per piece for electronics, and we're putting out $180,000 a year to dispose of electronics, maybe we should be trying to recover some of that cost. You know.
Thank you. And again, I'd gladly enjoy being part of a committee or just learning. I think it'd be a tremendous opportunity.
Now, the alderman could create a committee. The Board of Public Works could look at this as a committee, or we could have a committee, or
Can we do a joint committee?
when we did look at recycling last, which we looked at a more narrow issue, there was a committee that was kind of a joint group of people, you know, we could have, there could be an ordinance that would say that, you know, a few aldermen and a few public works commissioners should look at this, or, you know, something like that, and maybe that joint approach would ensure that we reach a consensus more quickly. Alderman Jettie.
So what I was thinking about was an ordinance that would create a committee. The composition, you know, it's all subject to discussion, but the composition I envision would be, you know, the mayor or a designee, you know, a public works commissioner, the director of public works, the director of the solid landfill, you know, Sally Hyland. I was envisioning that all of these people would be included, and I imagine that ordinance would be referred to the Board of Public Works for their approval, you know, and ultimately passed by the Board of Aldermen and become a committee, similar to the, you know, we have an energy and environment committee, something very, you know, similar to that. I looked at it as something that would, I thought, that you know, that this would be, you know, welcomed, and I had no idea that it would be taken as an insult in any way whatsoever. And so if the director is telling me that she doesn't need any help and doesn't want any help, I suppose I'd have to
No.
reconsider whether I want to do this.
No, that's not what I'm suggesting, it's just the fact to bring in experts, I think we have those here. I think that there are some, you know, Commissioner Pappas has been a commissioner for a long time, she's got a lot of knowledge about the history of the landfill, the history of recycling, and kind of where we've been, and I think brings a unique perspective because of her time on the board. So I think she's somebody that should be involved. You know, I think there are things that we definitely should look at. I think I mentioned some of those things. Commissioner Pappas mentioned some of those things, I think, but something like citing a new landfill would never, ever happen. We're so fortunate to have the landfill that we have. You can't cite landfills anywhere in New England anymore, and that's a real problem because they're closing. So, I mean, the focus should be on really maximizing the space that we have. And Superintendent LaFleur and I think we have a presentation coming up maybe next month to show you what we're looking at. But right now, we're trying to permit construction of Phase 3, and that'll buy us probably another 10 or 15 years. And then we're looking at the permitting of Phase 4. We've been meeting with the consultants, we've been talking about the design, and we could have a lot of time left if we can make the design work that we're hoping to have work. So, actually, far more than I think we thought. So, we're hopeful. So, I would like to see a committee. I think that would be great. I'd love to see the Board of Public Works advise us, and then, you know, and maybe also, you know, have some input from the aldermen. I just think that we should focus on the things that are really the issues. And I don't see solid waste as a huge problem. I think we're managing it actually pretty effectively. So.
Commissioner Moriarty.
I would have to agree with Director Photo. I feel that the landfill is under our jurisdiction as a Board of Public Works. I would, for one, like to see this board take the lead on a committee with the division, or we get a joint committee and have I mean, an ordinance to me, it seems like intentions are good, but if necessary, I'd rather see this board at least start that that committee going, see where we go with that, and then we can report back, but, that's what we're here for. We're elected officials, the landfill is under our jurisdiction, we should be the ones, doing this.
Commissioner Pappas.
There are some narrow issues on here. I know for an awfully long time, I was really liking us, I was hoping that we would take a look at maybe increasing the $5 permit fee, which I know a lot of people get upset over, in this electronics issue. And it seems to me that this is a more focused issue, and I think if we wanted like broader, more long-term strokes like that, I think that certainly might come under the view, the purview of the Board of Aldermen. And, certainly you bring a whole lot to the table and an interest in this area. But I do think that we need to look at both short-term and long-term, and I think even in the 10 years I've seen the recycling markets change an awful lot. And the other reality we have is, regardless of how much the recycling costs, we'd have to get, I would need a second garbage can if I didn't have, if I didn't recycle. So, I think long-term, if the recycle markets don't change, I think that we might need to take a look at some of those more long-term issues. But those are my thoughts, and I appreciate the work that to go into this. And as I said, I think that if we were looking more long-term, that might be like a larger, more long-term committee. But I do think that, given the sharp increases that we're facing, that I think that we'd be able to get more done in a shorter period of time if we focused in a more narrow fashion. But that's just my view.
More narrow fashion, you mean look at these specific items here?
Right, yes, exactly. Start small. Start small. And, I couldn't agree more about, the plastic bags, but at a certain point, there are things that we don't have control over any more than you're going to have, that you have control over this, the Board of Aldermen has the state putting, charging the city more for the retirement benefits. And I think that one of the things that we do pretty well is kind of roll up our sleeves and kind of get into the weeds that we sort of have control over. And we've always had very active liaisons, and I have found their help and their input in my 10 years to be very valuable, and certainly yours included.
Thank you. Mayor, could I?
Alderman Jettie.
So, I just want to, make it very clear. I have, if the Board of Public Works is wants to form a committee and study this issue, I'm all for it. I don't care who does it. This is not something, I just think this is something that should be done, that needs to be done. And if the Board of Public Works, if the commissioners are willing to initiate this and do it, that's fine with me. I wasn't looking to take anything away from my vision was that you certainly would be included in this, but I'm happy to sit back and let you do it, let you run with it, and support you in any way I can with whatever you come up with from as far as the Board of Aldermen is concerned.
Commissioner Pappas.
For what it's worth, I didn't take any offense at all, and would, when I actually just happened to mention that was, hoping that you would participate because you really seem to have, you have a very good background knowledge and, importantly too, an interest in this, because it's not the most exciting stuff to a lot of people.
So is there any other discussion or anything else on this item?
Is there any commissioner that would be interested in chairing such a committee? Or Commissioner Papp? Can I throw Commissioner Pappas under the bus? And then perhaps Alderman Jettie would be willing to
Okay,
join our
great.
committee, and I don't know, who
Well,
else?
If we do this, you have to look at the broader issue of, what, not only the specific items, yes, but also the issue of, what about all this money we're putting into disposing of recycling? What should we do about the fact that we know the glass is going into a landfill, and I think we have to think about community education as well. There are many people who are very, very committed to recycling and have been for a long, long time. I started recycling actually when I was married. First time we started a pilot in 1987. But conditions have changed a lot. And now the question is, what do we do about that, if anything? So, anyway, you, I think, should consider all these broader issues in addition to the very specific items that we're looking at here. So what do you want to do? You want to make a motion, or what do you want to do?
I move that we organize a committee consisting of our liaison to the Board of Aldermen, and staff, and
Who wants,
Public
who
Works
from
official.
the commission
Is there another commissioner that would be willing to participate?
wants to be on this?
I'll participate.
Commissioner Ackerman, anyone else?
Well, I would be, but that would make 3 commissioners.
Oh, well, so what?
That would be,
quorum.
that would be a
So what?
quorum.
That all it means that we have
Just
to
announce
notice the
it.
meetings. I mean, that's not the.
Okay, then I'd be happy to.
Yeah, okay, we noticed, but we want to do that anyway. This is, we don't want to keep this, like, under wraps. We're trying to
Right.
gain understanding and educate and everything. So, all right, so what about Commissioner Tease? You want to be involved, or?
Of course he does.
I would be interested from an education standpoint to participate, for sure.
All right, so the motion is that the committee be formed consisting of Commissioner Pappas, Tease, Moriarty, and Ackerman, Alderman Jettie as the advisory member from the Board of Aldermen, as well as the appropriate staff members to begin looking at all of the issues pertaining to recycling. Correct? That's the motion.
that's a motion.
And we'll figure out who the staff should be, but certainly the director, Mr. LaFleur,
Sally Highland.
Sally Highland are probably the appropriate people, and if there's someone else, we'll. All right, so that's the motion. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And the motion passes. All right. Any further discussion on the presentation made by Mr. LaFleur or the spreadsheet? If not, we'll move on to, thank you very much, I guess he got down. We'll now move on to engineering. Is there, item A is,
Move to approve the residential and commercial wastewater service permit and fees as submitted.
any discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item B.
Move to approve the drain layers license for Hooksett Paving Company, Inc., 20 Blevins Drive, Candia, New Hampshire, 03034, in accordance with Nashua City Code 255-19, issuance of drain layers license.
Any discussion? All those in favor of the meeting say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item C.
Move to approve the hardship request from Lofts 34 LLC to excavate for installation of 3 sewer services on Franklin Street, which has a 5-year moratorium.
Now, I think we have several people who wish to address us on this item. First, Attorney Prunier, possibly Director Cummings.
Thank you.
And so I
Thank-
will call on Attorney Prunier.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. For the record, my name is Gerald Prunier. I'm an attorney with offices at 20 Trafalgar Square in Nashua. I'm here representing the applicant. I think all of you have read in the paper and know of the fact that this building on Franklin Street of over 300,000 square feet was purchased approximately 3 years ago by my client, and are turning it into 200 units of apartments. It is a building that was built in the early 1800s, and as they went through with the renovations, they had some surprises. And the surprise that they now have, hopefully is the last surprise they're going to have, is that replacing the connection from the building into the sewer on Franklin Street, which means that we have to do some work in Franklin Street. We are prepared, and hopefully we'll be opening to rent this building at the end of the summer, early fall, probably around September 1st. And we'd like to do that instead of having to wait for a full year with this amount of money expended and so forth. And we didn't have any knowledge that all of these things, it's an old building, didn't have a lot of architectural drawings as to what was in it. We do the best we can, and hopefully we're going to have a nice apartment building that the city of Nashua will be proud of. But what we're at a point now where we would like to put the hazardous sewer from our building into and under Franklin Street instead of on Franklin Street. And that's why we have to replace what we have for there. And we would like to do it. We will comply with the city of Nashua requirements for resurfacing Franklin Street in the proper procedure.
But as I understand it, you need to go into Franklin Street, and part of Franklin Street was paved about 4 years ago.
Correct.
And so technically, the 5-year moratorium would apply for another year, and you're asking for permission to
Do it now.
Do the work now.
And comply with the requirements on resurfacing the street that's part of the ordinance.
Discussion, questions?
Thank you.
Commissioner Pappas.
People who've been on the board a while know that I'm not a huge fan of giving these exceptions. I think maybe once, I think that I agreed to one on Purnham, there was about a year left, and they were gonna double it actually worked out well, because they were gonna double the amount of paving done. And I do tend to vote against them. I feel a little bit better that there's about a year and a half left, rather than the full, 4 to 5 years. But I still, it's out of my comfort zone to grant these, because when we look at all the paving we're gonna do, because of what poor condition our roads are in, we've been in the position of having to bond out, having to bond money for paving, and I never think that that's a good position to be in. And I think it's the city taxpayers of Nashua that, really are gonna suffer the brunt of the poor roads. As I said, I don't feel quite as uncomfortable about this one as I did the last one that was granted. But I just think at a certain point, you do have to draw a line. I understand it's gonna be really good for downtown. But I can't support it for those reasons, but I am glad at least there's not a whole lot of time left to it.
Now, I think Director Cummings is here to address the economic and tax benefits of this project.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you to the board. Again, for the record, my name is Tim Cummings. I'm the Director of Economic Development. I'm here before you tonight to ask that you favorably endorse this motion for a few reasons, and one is relative to the economic impact. If you assign just a a per unit value of $2,000 per taxes. With 200 units, you'll be looking at just shy of $500,000 of new revenue coming into the city every year. That's one of the major reasons we really want to see this project move forward. Prior to Brady Sullivan coming in and doing this wonderful project, we had a blighted building that was depressing the area. And if we could move this project along, this new revenue could help go to the paving program that was referenced earlier. The other point I want to make, and the reason why I rise to speak on this issue, is because it's not necessarily just a Brady Sullivan issue for this particular project. It's actually an overall Nashua issue with our lack of housing. So currently today, we have an occupancy rate of multifamily housing of about 99%. And in fact, we were out this afternoon at the Renaissance project, a project I referenced a few moments ago when I spoke a little earlier, and we were touring the site, and we learned that the second building, which does not have an occupancy yet, which is 76 units, has a waiting list of over 300 names. Nashua needs these housing units to be put in place, to be put in service. So I ask that this group do not delay this and favorably endorse the motion. Lastly, I'll say it's my understanding that Franklin Street is overall in pretty rough shape. This is just a certain section of Franklin Street that work was done on. The overall condition of the road needs to be looked at, and I don't think we should throw the baby out with the bathwater, because this could be a good way of solving the problem overall. So thank you very much.
So does anybody have questions or comments for Mr. Cummings or Attorney Prunier? Commissioner Moriarty.
Just a question, so these 200 units are rental units, or are they for sale? They're rental?
So rental, my understanding is it's rental.
Because you mentioned a $500,000 income, so what are we talking about? Assessment value of the rental unit?
Per unit, roughly. I mean, we're just talking rough numbers here. Across the city, a multifamily apartment building like Renaissance, like Brady Sullivan, like John Flatley's project, you can see a per unit valuation of about $2,000.
Meaning it pays $2,000 in taxes per unit. Valuation would be more like $100,000 per unit. 80 to 100. Commissioner Tease.
Being new to the board and not knowing your history, I will strongly vote in favor of this. I think by doing so, it encourages other developers to come to the city and potentially develop other vacant parcels. I'm familiar with the developers and Attorney Prunier, and I think by voting unanimously, it does send a pretty strong signal for others to come in and help develop our community.
Alderman Jettie.
So after, I understand that you gotta dig up the road to get access or to do the sewer work that the building needs. But after you're done, and after you pave it over, is the road gonna be as good as it was, as it is now?
The answer is maybe better.
I was going to say, perhaps
Go.
the patch might be
I don't have
better.
to say anything more. It's going to be better.
What's that?
You heard the economic development director telling you about the problems on Franklin Street, Wood Franklin Street. I don't have to tell you. And you've gone down there. Parts of it are okay. When we're finished with it, it's even going to be better than okay at that section of it.
I think the requirements are, and Steve Dukran can address this, but that they pave over the patched area plus 4 feet on each side or something like that, would it?
20 feet. 20.
20 feet. 20 feet beyond. Commissioner Ackerman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I too echo the thoughts and comments of my colleagues. One of the questions I have, and I'm not sure who in the room can answer, but I'm sure we'll find out momentarily, is there's a waiting list for Renaissance, you've mentioned that, Director. I don't know if there's a waiting list for here. August is coming rather quickly. What do we anticipate, assuming it gets a favorable approval, when do we anticipate the work to begin? When do we anticipate the work to end? And will it be done prior to the additional 200 new vehicles coming into this facility, so it doesn't further disrupt the other people that use Franklin Street?
Commissioner, the work will begin immediately because we are looking to do this in the next 90 days, opening up the requirement. And we don't expect any of the vehicles to disrupt the work that's done. It has to pass the muster of the engineering department before they get approval.
Right.
But I think the answer is they're gonna do this work before they rent the apartments.
Well, that's what I want to hear.
Yeah.
I want to hear that.
Right.
Yeah.
I know that, that's why I
Okay,
was saying.
thank
Yeah.
you.
If that's what you wanted to hear, that's what I'm saying.
Well, well, let me ask one more question. Will the paving be done by that time as well, anticipated?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
very good.
I'm not even
And
sure
the
without,
good thing,
I'm not
the
even
good thing
sure.
we're doing is we're doing the paving when the paving plants are open.
Yes. I don't know that they could get an occupancy permit without an adequate sewer, so, I mean, they gotta do the sewer before the people move in.
Thank you.
There's no septic system over there. Commissioner Pappas.
I just wanted to answer to the Alderman's comment, and the reason I feel strongly about cutting into a road, there was a court case, the city of Manchester and Nashua, no, city of Manchester and Concord. I think we're being sued by the gas company, which now it's, what's the name of the gas company now?
Liberty?
Liberty. Because they were charging when they were cutting into a road. And I think that when you cut into a road, it's the subsurface of the road that it permits, every time you cut into a road, it does damage of the road. So that's, with all the money we spent on paving, that's why I've been a stickler about it. And as I said, it's nothing personal against the applicants now. Thank you.
Commissioner Ackerman.
Yeah, just one more comment, and I want to thank everybody for the dialogue that's going on here, because it does educate me, and it does give me a good feel that doing this is the right thing for the city of Nashua, the whole 9 yards. But as we think about 200 units coming into play here, I know there's other strategic plans in place to possibly consider opening up Franklin Street to the Parkway. Is that anything that's on the horizon for 2018?
I would say it's a possibility, but not in 2019.
Not in 2019 either?
Correct.
It's a probably $2 to $4 million. So that would have to be looked at very carefully in terms of the impact as well. I mean, it would create some issues it would improve the situation getting out of Franklin Street, but if you think about it, it would also create another Hudson, highway to Hudson thoroughfare, right? So you could come down off the highway, exit 6, get on the Broad Street Parkway, and drive down Franklin Street on your way to Hudson. So, that needs to be looked at pretty carefully, because, are we gonna create in that neighborhood, which potentially could become a pretty nice residential neighborhood once this project is open? It's already a pretty nice neighborhood, but would become a nicer neighborhood. You could see follow-on upgrades and the like in the homes around the project. Or do we want to create a highway running through there for through traffic going from, Hudson to Manchester or whatever? That we need to, carefully think about. And so the best approach may be to see what conditions are once these apartments open. Does it create a lot of extra congestion? And there's some other things that could possibly be done to address congestion that does develop, so I think it's let's evaluate the situation once the project is open and we can see definitely what arises before we decide to go forward in any direction, I think, putting aside the cost. Other questions, comments? All right, the motion on the floor is to approve the hardship request 1 year early, or,
A big statement.
a year before, or a year and a few months before August of 2019. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
And the motion passes 4-1.
Mayor, a quick point of order.
Thank you very much
I'm going to ask him
for coming in.
for a point of order.
Mayor?
Yes,
Commissioner
Commissioner
Pappas.
Pappas.
I'm really sorry, I'm very, very uncomfortable right now. There were 2 items that I had asked the director to put on the agenda. And I'm wondering if there's any way we could take 2 items ahead, if that would be all right.
Which items are those?
Administration B and
This-
C.
Yeah,
There's a motion to move items B and C up in the agenda. Items B and C under administration up in the agenda so that we undertake them now. Any discussion on that motion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes, so we will move on to administration, item B and C, and then return to the regular order of the agenda once those are completed.
thank you.
So we have administration, item B, which is informational, amending the city's stormwater management ordinances. Who is going to be presenting? on that?
Engineer Gill is here to
Ms. Gill,
present
please
that.
come up.
Good afternoon.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Amy Gill, Senior Staff Engineer, the Engineering Department. I'm here just to speak about the ordinance that's being amended regarding the stormwater management section of the ordinance. As you're probably, as most of you may be aware, the city has a EPA permit that allows us to discharge stormwater directly into our waterways. We've had that permit in place since 2003. The city itself had put in this stormwater management ordinance well in advance, a couple of years in advance of the permit becoming active in 2003. This ordinance was in place about 1998. Through the years, now fast forwarding to 2018, the stormwater permit that the EPA has required has been updated and requiring different items be included in a municipality's regulated municipalities ordinance for items such as erosion control, tightening those requirements, as well as allowable discharges to the stormwater systems, as well as prohibited discharges to the stormwater systems. In addition, some of these are items that require us to get in line with when a property comes in, site development. They have to evaluate the runoff on the site for certain storm events, small ones and large ones, and these storm events will come in line to what the DES requires when a site developer looks at the site. Many people have asked us to get the storms that we look at, whether they're the 1 year, 2 year, 5 year, 25-year storm, 50-year storm in line, so they don't have to look at more storms than are required. So that's another item in here. So those are the biggest changes would be the areas that are allowing erosion control, tightening that up, as well as prohibited discharges and allowable discharges. One item I would like to point out is in the past with this ordinance, we talked about areas in Nashua that were being redeveloped. As you know, Nashua is a very robust community and well-developed. So you're seeing over and over again properties that are being redeveloped. We'd like to take the opportunity to look at areas that may have been developed long ago when a lot of asphalt and roofs were put in place, where we have a lot of impervious area. And we like to see some of that area to become green space so that more water could infiltrate
And this is an ordinance that is allowing developers to take a look at perhaps reducing impervious area by a certain amount. Stage in here is 10%. So we made that a little bit stronger. So,
Questions,
any
discussion?
questions?
Commissioner Pappas?
Do you like that 10%, or do you think that it could go higher?
10% is the start. We had discussed about it in our little meetings, in-house, what it could be. And we originally talked about it being perhaps 20%, but 10% is what the group kind of settled on going forward with.
Yes, go ahead.
Was engineering consulted when this had come
We were
up?
part of the group.
Okay,
I was part of the group, yes.
okay. So engineering wouldn't mind seeing it going up a little bit more?
It would be I wouldn't mind seeing it quite higher, but yes, improving it beyond 20% would be a suggestion that maybe the board would feel comfortable making.
I think we'd like to see it at 20%. And the city engineer can speak to that more if he'd like.
City Engineer Steve Dukran. Yes, Engineer Gill was present at most of the meetings with the other folks in City Hall when this was discussed. It came to light more recently when we had a federal EPA visit us, discussing about our need to reduce our CSOs even further, CSO discharges. And if you look at in the city, the CSO areas, you'll see a lot of it is very impervious, a lot of paved areas, a lot of buildings, very intense. And this is an opportunity for us to, as they get redeveloped, to do something a little bit different with the stormwater discharges, detention facilities, underground storage, that kind of thing. And so 20%, though small, will be a significant improvement to what we have right now. And as this goes through the public hearing, it's going to go through an automatic committee and all of that. We don't know what it'll end up, but I think we should shoot for status at 20%.
Commissioner Ackerman?
No, it's just
You have your hand
scratching.
up?
No,
Commissioner
just-
Pappas?
So I actually had noticed that I had called the director because I saw this in the paper, and it looked like a pretty technical ordinance, and so my understanding is it's under administration because it didn't come to us.
Not referred to us,
It was
correct.
not
That's
referred
correct.
to us. So if we felt that 20% was something that would be better, does that mean that we send that we could either go to the public hearing or send the recommendation through our liaison?
You could do either.
Yes.
Okay.
We could pass this
Both.
with that recommendation.
They're not asking.
Well, they're not asking, they're not asking us.
It wasn't referred to the Board of Public.
It's a favorable recommendation with your additional recommendation.
They didn't ask us for,
They didn't ask.
Well,
they didn't ask for our
That
opinion.
doesn't prevent the board from making,
Making
it,
a
Okay.
recommendation.
just because you haven't been asked.
Okay. All right,
I
so,
don't know why it wasn't included here, but,
all right, so I guess I move that we make a recommendation with the 20% instead of the 10%.
So could I ask for clarification? Are you talking about,
Redevelopment G.
Section G.
section G, yeah? Redevelopment? See, instead of the 10%, you'd rather see 20%?
Yeah, because it impacts the CSOs, indirectly wastewater treatment, I guess.
Yes.
And where is this ordinance now, Mayor? Is it-
well, I think it came into the Board of alderman at the last meeting, which I was not there for, and was referred to a committee.
I think June 8th was.
It was referred to a committee, but I'm not sure which committee.
I think June 8th,
But it
they
is in
have a
committee.
public hearing on it. I want to say June 8th, but I might be all wrong.
Amy, do you know what committee it was referred to? The Board of Aldermen? No? PEDC?
Which, which
Well, I'm on the PDDC, so
Oh, okay.
PE.
So you'll be able to provide our
What's
board's
the,
recommendation.
which one? Which committee?
Planning and Economic
Oh, so,
Development
okay, so-
Committee.
All right, so the motion is to recommend that the ordinance be amended to reflect 20% in section G under redevelopment, as opposed to the 10% that is currently in the ordinance. Is there any discussion on that? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes. The next item that we are
Before you go on, Mayor,
Yes.
could I ask when the, so I'll have to check, but I'm assuming when the public hearing is probably going to be the same night as the Planning and Economic Development Committee meeting,
Yes.
and
I
so
think
we'll,
you guys hold the, I think you hold the public hearing. I think it'll be the auspices of your committee.
so either at the public hearing or at the committee meeting, could someone from the Department of Public Works appear and talk about why this 20%, why it should be amended to 20%? Thank you.
All right, so the next item that we are taking out of order is the discussion of downtown events. I believe the director is going to discuss that. or-
Well, that was something that Commissioner Pappas had asked be put on the agenda, so.
Yeah, you know, just, I think that I think that it's great with all the events that we have downtown, but I feel like we put our budget and sometimes the director in a tough position if these events come up after we've done budgeting. So I just wanted to know, number one, if we close down the Main Street for the farmer's market, again, I have nothing, nothing against that, but I just wanted to be assured that it's not going to require staff overtime and just other events as they come up, that we're not in the position of doing that, so that, when winter comes and we don't have enough overtime because we've had to do other overtime. That was my train of thought, and just a question.
To the best of my knowledge, and the mayor can correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think Public Works has any involvement in the farmer's market. Correct?
Okay, and I think the farmer's market is great. It was, nothing personal against festivals or anything, but just, when we're in the midst of a winter, a tough winter, it's always good to make sure we have enough. And I would like to thank the chair for taking these items out of order. And I apologize for all the sneezing and the coughing. So but
I was gonna get you a recycle bin for all those dishes.
I don't think those are recyclable, actually. But thank you.
All right, so why don't we return to the normal, or we're going to return to the normal, back to the agenda, having taken two items out of order. We now will go to engineering item D.
To approve, I move to approve the construction contract for the 2018 sewer replacement Kinsley Street project to Newport Construction of Nashua, New Hampshire, in an amount not to exceed $1,139,300. Funding will be through Department 169 wastewater. Fund wastewater activity, sewer rehab, and sewer structures.
Discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And the motion passes. Item E.
You gonna make me do the next one? What
I
is
guess
this,
the-
is this
I guess-
hazing? What is this?
The minutes should reflect that Commissioner Pappas had to leave for health.
Move to approve the engineering services contract with Hayner Swanson, Inc. of Nashua, New Hampshire, in the amount of $328,675 for the management and construction administration of the paving program. Funding is contingent upon the approval of the bonds that will be funding the multi-year paving project. Department 160 Admin Engineering Fund Bond Activity Paving.
Discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item F.
Move to approve the award of the FY18 asphalt testing contract to SW Cole Engineering, Inc., Londonderry, New Hampshire, in the amount of $43,875. Funding will be through Department 161 Street, Fund General, Activity, Paving, Department 161 Street, Fund, Trust, Account Category 54, Property Services.
Discussion? Commissioner Ackerman.
Thank you. Is this something that we've done year over year during our paving program by having a third party?
We have done some, but we're increasing the amount of testing that we're doing. So we're going to be testing both at the plant and in the field, just to make sure that we're getting the proper mix.
Okay. Has there been an issue in the past?
Yes. Yes.
So the big change is inspecting at the plant. So the test can be run on the asphalt as it's being made to make sure that its consistency is correct. Because relatively minor, what sound like minor alterations in the content can have significant implications for what you see on the road. So we want to make sure that this meets the spec, it meets the specs with quality and meets quality requirements by doing inspections at both ends. And we did have some problems this past season with some paving that didn't seem to have the durability that it should. And rather than fight with the contractor, after the fact, we want to inspect at the plant and make sure we're getting the right thing.
Okay, thank you.
Those that know this area say that you can, it's inspecting on the site as the pavement is laid down is good, but it's not foolproof, and you can miss things, and you can test in an area where the asphalt is good, but then in somewhere else it's not as good, and but the real place to be is at the source.
Does this company also check out the compaction? Or?
Yeah, they're going to be doing that on site too. Yes, yes.
So since we're spending millions, we want to make sure we're getting our money's worth. So
May buy
this is
our
a
own machine someday.
relatively, minor expense as compared with the money we're spending to put the paving down. Any other comments, questions? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item G.
I'll make a motion to approve a contract with T-Bolt Corporation of Manchester, New Hampshire for the amount not to exceed $35,000 for drainage improvements on Marshall Street. Funding through Department 169 Wastewater Fund, Wastewater, Activity, CSO Flooding.
Discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And the motion passes. Now, I need to apologize as well. I have to be somewhere at 6 o'clock. So I'm going to have to I'm going to have to leave and turn the meeting over to Vice Chair Ackerman, Commissioner Ackerman, who will finish the rest of the meeting.
Very good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Safe travels. Do we have a motion on item H?
In honor of Commissioner Pappas, I move to approve the hardship request from Liberty Utilities to excavate for installation of replacement gas lines on East Stark Street, which has a 5-year moratorium.
Any discussion? If I
Do
see,
Do we have somebody from Liberty here to speak to that at all? Yes. Good, okay.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Brian Frost. I'm an engineer. I work for Liberty Utilities. Earlier this spring, the city of Nashua approached us because of the need to repave Concord Street. We typically like to replace aging infrastructure before paving so that there isn't leakage in the future that requires digging in freshly paved streets, being proactive. As part of this job, we designed out the Concord Street project. We need to make a tie-in at East Stark Street into the existing gas infrastructure and to provide flow from a regulator station on East Stark Street to gas up the new main that's being installed on Concord Street to replace the cast iron that was installed in 1930. To do that, we need to dig into East Stark Street about 25 to 30 feet.
Is what it is.
Any other discussion? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Very good. Let's, hold on. I was on column H. Let's see, I have a motion, let's move over to administration.
Move to approve the placement of a sculpture in front of the Indian Head Bank Building, 146 Main Street, for the Sculpture Symposium.
Very good. Any discussion? I think our director is, that's all right, is passing out a document.
Let me get back to my, next again. These are the locations of the three sculptures. All of these sites have already been approved by the Board of Public Works, with the exception of the Main Street location, which is before you this evening. But this shows you where all of the sculptures will be going. And also gives you a sense of what they're going to look like as well.
Certainly. Commissioner Tease.
Just had a question. So these sculptures will become a permanent part
Yes.
in downtown, and it's, comes under our purview to maintain them?
Yes.
Is the one that's going to be placed at 146 Main require any special maintenance or anything like that?
No, I don't think it'll really require any special maintenance. We are going to put a granite base for it to sit on,
Nice.
right on top. But other than that, I don't see that it's going to be
Thank you.
any maintenance.
Very good.
It's a stone sculpture, so.
Very good.
Commissioner,
Yes, Alderman Jettie.
so the pictures that we have, there's a dark one and a light one. Which,
This is the actual sculpture. This
Okay.
was the model. So each of the sculptures do a model for the Sculpture Symposium to show what their artwork is going to look like prior. So with the opening of the Sculpture Symposium, these were present. And then the one to the right is the actual sculpture that he's working on.
And 146 Main Street, if I see correctly, is right in front of Indian Head Bank Building?
Right, yes, correct.
Okay. Any other discussion? Let's see. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Very good. We'll move to item D, budget transfers. Would you like to comment on that, Director?
These are just they're pretty straightforward
Okay.
for wastewater. This is pretty typical to transfer within our budget this time of year.
You need a motion to approve as presented?
Sure.
So moved.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Very good. We'll move over to Director's Report.
You miss Diane right now. Okay. These are new sewer services, at 24 Coburn Ave on the left and 61 East Glenwood Street on the right. Our paving program is in full swing now, and we are providing weekly notifications. Hopefully, you've been receiving those from Lauren Byers. But they're also on Facebook, Twitter, and on the city's website under the road construction detour paving button. Stella Stadium, this is just some pictures of the guys getting it all cleaned up and blowing some bark mulch into the stadium. The roof, you'll probably recall approving this a while back. The roof on the gatehouse was replaced in April. The work was done by Force Year Construction. This is Mine Falls Park Trail Day. This is one of our employees cleaning up debris in the canal. The wooden kayak launch on the canal was replaced with a modular dock, which is easier to use. And this is located on the canal near the mill yard entrance to Mine Falls Park. These are the PAL Community Gardens. The PAL continues to expand the community gardens along the rail trail near the PAL building between Ash and Vine Street. The children are continuing to work on beautifying the section of the trail. These are the new fields that we added. We have the goals and the painted lines now on the fields, and they look great and are really being utilized. The kids at Charlotte Ave School absolutely love it too at recess. It's pretty fun to watch them. This was a softball competition to promote residents to get off, this is from Public Health, get off the couch and get healthy. So our Park and Rec Department challenged the Department of Public Health, and I'm happy to say that we won 10-0. So but they all had it was a lot of fun. Even our superintendent was out there playing. So these are the new plantings in front of City Hall. They were finally finished. We have Summer Fun Opening Day, Saturday from 10 to 1. We have all kinds of events going on. There will be a bike rodeo, bounce houses, mural painting, Patches the Clown, face painting, snow cones, and children are encouraged to bring their bicycles. Everything is free. And we also have the Spartan Drum and Bugle Band, the Greg and Axel Show, and many more. So it should be a fun day. This is an emergency dig that we did. There was the sewer man failed on. It was on May 8th. We repaired about 15 feet of the sewer main there. This is catch basin replacement on Thornton Road. We replaced 2 catch basins at the intersection of Great Stone and Thornton Road. One had failed and the other was in rough shape. This is just a picture of our sidewalk sweeping. We do a lot of our sidewalk sweeping at night in places like Amherst Street because it's really the only safe way to do it. So that night we swept Amherst Street and sidewalks from Library Hill to the Merrimack line. This is a sewer repair on Vine Street, again, which had just failed due to its age. This is a picture of the sculpture symposium. This is the rail trail at Pine Street. Pictures of crews that are installing bases for the sculptures to sit on. There is a bike share program. I think Commissioner Ackerman, I think you went to the meeting for the launch of or information about VO Ride. You probably have seen, if you've been downtown, you've probably seen the bikes downtown already. But the event is actually Sunday, June 3rd, and at City Hall, and it should be a lot of fun. Okay, bike lanes. Picture of our engineer Emil holding up the plan that he's worked extremely hard at. We are adding bike lanes to support both biking in Nashua, but also the VO Ride program that's being launched. and we're very close to finalizing the plan, and hopefully we'll be striping bike lanes soon on South Main Street, all the way from Rivera College to Greeley Park, and also some other areas out on West Hollis Street and Harbor Ave, and that's where we're starting, and then we're gonna try to add to that. So we're pushing forward with that, and that's been a real challenge. Our streets were not designed for bike lanes, so Engineer Dukran has had to do some of his, probably the finest handiwork in his career to try to make this happen. So we're pretty excited about that. So that should be happening fairly soon. This is an aeration basin that we've taken offline just to do some routine repairs and maintenance. We do that on a regular basis. We added 200 air diffusers, rigid piping for more efficient tank filling, and we repaired the drain structures. So these tanks are about 18 feet deep, and they hold about 900,000 gallons, just to give you an order of magnitude. So. We gave the fifth graders from Bicentennial School a tour of the facility in late May. We do a lot of that at the wastewater treatment plant. We really enjoy having the kids come, and they love it. We had about 50 students that day, so it's a lot of fun. Just to a bit of bragging rights, the New England Water Environment Association, NUEA, used our DPW employees on the cover of their career opportunities brochure. So that's Heather LaRocque and Michelle Gaudet. Heather, unfortunately, is on medical leave now, but
Got to follow those slides that aren't moving.
what? Ooh. See, that's why that's why I need, there they are. There's the brochure. That's why I need Diane. She usually moves the slides for me. Okay. This is just painting the scale at the landfill. A couple of our temps are doing that work. And then I wanted to point out that our hazardous waste collection will be held on next is Thursday, June 7th at the street department from 3 to 7. So. And I believe that's it. Any questions? Yes.
Director Photo, when do you anticipate the lines to be painted over the course of the next month or two?
The long lines?
No, the
Or-
bicycle lines.
Oh, yes, hopefully, yes.
Okay.
Yes. It all really depends on the schedule of our striping company, but hopefully.
Okay. And with the addition of the new bikes, the bikes don't have a higher set of priority right away versus a vehicle. Everybody plays nice in the street, correct?
Well,
Or are there?
that's the hope, yes.
Okay.
So we do have some areas where we will have a dedicated bike lane. Wherever we can, that's optimal. But there are some areas that's just not possible, so the bikes will share a lane with the cars. But those lanes will be, our standard lane is about 11 feet wide, and the shared lanes will be 13 feet wide, so they'll be a little bit wider. So there'll be a little bit of both, and they'll be striped as such.
And the bikes are allowed, like on the rail trail, from behind City Hall? The bikes are
Yes,
allowed?
yes,
Okay,
absolutely.
very good, thank you. Any other questions for the director? If not,
Okay,
we'll
we'll
move
go into non-personnel non-public.
out of order, that's fine.
Oh, are we out of order?
Well, it says commissioner comments first.
Oh, I thought that's
But-
what that was, gotcha.
Anyone have any comments? Seeing none,
Oh, hold on one second.
pardon me, Commissioner Moriarty.
It just came to mind, accolades to Director Photo for being elected, I believe, to
Oh,
President
I'm
of the
president-elect of the
New
New
Hampshire
Hampshire Public Works
Public
Association.
Works Association.
All right. Absolutely.
That's it.
Any other comments or from the commissioners? Okay. Do we need to read something special to
I
go
think
into
Commissioner Tease has the,
Commissioner Tease?
Move by roll call that the board go into non-public session pursuant to RSA 91, A3, 2B, the hiring of any person as a public employee.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Roll call vote.
By roll call.
Commissioner Ackerman,
Yes.
Commissioner Moriarty,
Yes.
Commissioner Teese.
Yes.
Shut your mics off. Is there anything else to come before the board for this evening?
I've got to do one more motion once we go back live to the seal the minutes.
So we're back live.
We're back live.
We're good? I move to seal the minutes of the Board of Public Works non-public meeting of May 31, 2018, until such time as the majority of the board votes that the purpose of the confidentiality would no longer be served.
Vote by roll or not?
Commissioner Ackerman?
Yes.
Commissioner Moriarty?
Yes.
Commissioner Tease?
Yes.
Very good. Now, is there anything else to come before the board? If not, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Good. Have a wonderful evening. Thank you.
Great job. Did you even know about this coming in, or was that?